If you ever spent hours trying to scrape a website just to get back an empty page, this video is for you. I'll explain you exactly why that happens and show you the 3 methods in n8n that actually work on every website. And if you're new here, I'm Giovanni, and over the past 5 months, I've helped more than 50 businesses with AI automation and generated over $50,000 with my AI agency, all with zero technical knowledge. With that said, let's get into the video. The first method we're gonna check is the HTTP request. And this is used for the so-called static sites. Let's see it immediately how that works. For our scope, we want to scrape this website and retrieve all of the URL inside here. So how are we going to do that? We go to n8n. We know that the first thing is to add a manual trigger. So just for me to do it again, I'll just add it manually. And the second thing we want to do is to proceed with a simple HTTP request. We are going to grab this URL and we are going to paste it inside here and we're going to press execute. And you will notice that this is exactly what we wanted. Now, the problem that we are currently facing that we might solve real quick is, hey, but how are we going to be able to retrieve all of the links from this soup of information that we have? Well, nothing easier, because n8n has a built-in node, so it means that it's already there, that it's called HTML, and we have the possibility of extracting the HTML content. Pressing it here, then the JSON property is data. It means that it's going to retrieve this field, which is a text field. And inside here, we are going to extract the URL. How do we do that? We need to insert a key that we will call URL, and then we need to insert the so-called CSS selector, which basically is nothing more than a little box that helps us identify where these URL are inside our website. How are we going to do that? We're going to go back to our website and select anything that we like in terms of titles. We're going to right-click and press inspect. Now, here there is nothing technical, and if you have no background on web design, imagine it like this, which is a very easy way to understand it. All of the HTML code is organized into little folders, and you can see that one folder is defined by these angle brackets, right? So this one and this one, this is a folder, and then if you can see, these folders are clickable. So imagine like the HTML is a big drawer. Inside the drawer, you have some folders, and then inside some folders, you have little subfolders. And you keep going down and drilling down, and each of these folders is actually clickable. And you can see that, right? Because if I click here, then I expand something, then I expand something else, and I can go each level down. Now, in order to identify where our href is, we can actually see that, right? We know and we can clearly see that even if we were to press another right click and whatever, this part stays always the same for all of these titles. And this is generally the case across URLs, right? So again, bam, and you see it just changing here the title, but this is the same, and so on and so forth, right? So this is still the same. And then here it's just the title changing. And why this is important? Because at this point, we are able to identify which are the folders that we actually need to press in order to get to the URL that we want. And which are the folders? We can see that, and I'm going to go on purpose on top. The span is the first one. Then we have a class called tagline. And then we have another subfolders, which is called A. These are the 3 inputs that we need to put here. And how are we going to do that is we said span. We said that then the title, the class is called title line, if I'm not mistaken. This, correct? And then the folder. And then we have another subfolder, which is A. And in order to identify the A, we use the symbol of greater than, which means is child of, which in the example of our folder, it just means is inside the previous folder. At this point, what do we have? we have that we are inside this big, gigantic A, and this gigantic A has two things. It has a text, which is the name of the thing that we want, and then it has also an href, so this attribute that contains the URL. And in order to get the URL, we don't want the text because, as we just discussed, we want the attribute. And here we can simply press href. Now, we do want an array because we know that we don't only have one website right here, but we have more than one. Then we're going to press execute steps, and you are going to have all of your URL right here and ready to be exported. If you really wanted to go one level deeper, you could even split it, and then you would have the 30 items split, and now you're ready to continue scraping. Now, why is this good and where is this not good? Because we are going to have some things that we're going to see right now. This HTTP request has a gigantic one. It's free and it's very fast. We just need the URL, we take it, we paste it, and we are good to go. This is all like additional steps that we are doing to clean the data. But the reality is that already here, we are good to go. We have our text and we are ready to send it to an LLM or do whatever. There are a lot of cons though, and here we are going to introduce a bit more concept, which is some websites do not show the content immediately, but they take a bit. And the reason is that this bit is what's used from the website in order to display the code, because not every website has the information already there. And let's make an example because this is going to make everything more clear. Let's imagine that you go to a restaurant and you sit on the table, etc. You're ready to go and you ask, okay, what's on the menu? The waiter gives you the menu, and in the menu you already have all this information. So the HTTP request in this case is amazing. It's just going to take the information and get them from you. But the reality is that most of the times when you go to a restaurant, you wait a bit at the entrance, then the waiter comes, then you go sit in a table, and then the menu comes. So there is a bit of time, and this wait time is also what websites use. And why do they use it? Because the information are, generally speaking, inside a JavaScript. And to make it even more clear is, imagine that inside your website you have the menu, the text, then a URL that you can click, a button, and so on and so forth. All of this, we call it, is rendered in JavaScript stuff, meaning that it takes a while for the website to load it. And this is a big problem because, for example, if you are to scrape a Google search page, this does not work, and I'm going to show it to you in a while. On top, one other thing is that, so the first thing that we saw is that this type of request does not wait, gets the data immediately, but sometimes we don't have them there already. And the second one is that this is not scalable. And the reason is that sometimes if you do a lot of requests on a website, you can be banned, which is what we called you can be timed out. Because of that, we are therefore evolving from simple HTTP request to Firecrawl, which is another service. And why is it important? Because in the example that we just did, we mentioned that when we run the HTTP request immediately, it doesn't retrieve immediately the web page, meaning it doesn't show us the fact that the web page is empty, but it keeps on waiting up until the HTTP request, let's call it like this, or the request that we do to a server, actually is completely finished, which means that there is this little window or wait time in which the server, one at a time, is going to run all of the JavaScript, which basically means it's going to write in our menu all of the things that are inside. And once this is ready, then we can have it. And once again, this is the reason why sometimes if you do an HTTP request to a site that is dynamic, this is going to fail. And generally speaking, all of the dynamic side is Google searches, maps, social media, and all of these things. Let's now check in practice what this means for us and how are we going to use the information that we just got. We now want to scrape this website called Quotes to Scrape. And what we want to do is that we want to find a way to get only the text of these quotes. How are we going to do that? So we are not going to use the HTTP request this time, but we're going to use a service that allows you to scrape dynamic website. And this service is called Firecrawl. You are going to log in. So right here where I have dashboard, you're going to have to sign up. It's simply an email registration, so nothing difficult. Just register. It's going to send you a confirmation email and then you can proceed. And inside here, once you log in, you're going to go into this interface. And right here, we're going to be able to do everything we want. Let's go back to n8n because n8n made it super simple for us to be able to access this service. It has a built-in node called Firecrawl. And we see that right here, we can do so many things. We can search and optionally get some results, map the whole website and get all of the URLs. We can scrape one simple URL and get the content, which is what we are going to do. We can crawl a full website. So we go into each and every URL that we see. We can batch it in case it was like super big and we wanted to proceed a batch at a time. And at the end, you can even get the status right here, which means that you can even get a signal once the scraping is done for you to be able to say, okay, like now I can proceed with something else. For our purposes, we're just going to press scraper URL and get the content. And what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to connect your credentials. So you press create new credential right here, and you see that you will need an API key. How are you going to do that? You go back to Firecrawl, and inside the API keys, here you can press create, and you can name it whatever, n8n test Firecrawl. And you are going to press create. This service, by the way, it's going to be free for you because whenever you create a new account, they are going to give you some free credits that you can use. So in this case, we are not spending one dime. Of course, it will if you scale it in your operations. Back to our API keys, we're just going to copy this, go here, paste it, and if everything goes right, once you save it, you have your credential created. Here, you are going to take the URL of the website that you want to scrape, go back into n8n, and then you're going to press it and execute. This might take a second. Actually, it took a lot less than I expected. So it already succeeded. And what we have, if you can see, is a Markdown, which is very different from what we were getting before, because before we were getting HTML. Here we get Markdown, which is a great advantage because technically speaking, if I didn't want to clean it whatsoever, this is ready to go inside an LLM. So this is fantastic, right? It's at least one step less than before. On top, we know it's more scalable. However, we see, and I just want to do it with you for fun, that we have a lot of stuff inside here. We don't have only the text, but we have a lot of dirty things like HTTP request, links, buy, whatever, so on and so forth. So how can we ensure that we clean this and we do a proper exercise? We're going to use a node called information extractor. And in here, basically, you feed what you want this information extractor to look at. And in this case, we just want to look at the Markdown. And inside attribute, you give the name of the thing that you want to get back. In my example, I want to call, quote, text, the variable that I get back. And here I want to have all the text of all quotes together. And I just want the text though, meaning that I have to do one more step and specify inside the system prompt a little bit more what I want. You will notice that you get a pre-compiled template and you can just start modifying this. So you are an expert scraping algorithm, only extract relevant information from the text. Here we can change it with your goal. is to extract only the text from the Markdown you have as input and leave outside any HTTP/links you find that is non-relevant. And I believe we can also clear the last part that to leave the output null, because I don't want the output null, and this is actually required for me. Below here, you can connect your OpenAI model. It's very straightforward. You just go here, create new credential, and you see that here you have your API keys. And in case you don't know, you can go into OpenAI Playground. In here, overview, you're gonna press it and you're gonna go into the dashboard. It should be right here at the top right-hand corner. API keys. You are literally going to press create new secret key, test n8n, create new secret key. You're gonna copy this back into n8n, API, and boom, connected. Now, everything should work as expected, and let's see if we have what we want. Now we're gonna run this node, and we should get all of the text only of all of the quotes, meaning that it should be cleaned of all of this mess right here that it just makes everything very confusing to read, or also for the LLM. Let's now wait. Okay, and perfect. We have it. We have all of the text and only the text. We have also the thing, and then in here we can start. If we wanted to remove even this one, we could just go back to our prompt and say, don't include the author, and so on and so forth. Great. Now we have, as we mentioned, a lot of potential with Firecrawl. However, this is still not the best option possible. And why is that? We said that we have dynamic sites. But the reality is that Joe the bot is sometimes not able to go, as we mentioned, from here to here simply by waiting. Sometimes websites have protection, which is nothing more than anti-bots, anti-scraping, that they are using in order to prevent people like us to scrape the data. Imagine company website or many other stuff, right? Because when we talk about making money with AI, which is where these things are then applied, we want to get the information of the people, websites, enriching data sets, and so on. And therefore, there is these intermediate layers that Firecrawl is not able to manage. And so how are we going to fix that? There is a service, which is Apify, that I'm going to discuss, but however, in general, there is third-party services that allow you to use scrapers that are made by developers on this specific purpose, for this specific purpose, which is helping you do this. Let's go and check Apify. Apify is a platform of third-party scrapers where other people, as I just mentioned, create these scrapers and you can access them by paying a little amount of money. I'm talking about cents per run, so nothing crazy. And let's do an example, right? I want to do a Google search, because if you try to use Firecrawl for a Google search, you will fail, most likely. And not always. And here you can press the Google search results scraper, and you're going to try it for free. What are we doing right now? Before even using it in n8n, it's the best practice to ensure that you can actually scrape what you want and you get the result that you expect, right? Because only then it makes sense to automate. It doesn't make sense to go the other way around. Like before I automate and then I realize it doesn't work. That's why we are going to try with this query, which is the dentists in New York, number of results. I just want 10 results. I don't want 500, also because it's a pay-per event. So the least amount of results, the better. And this is just for educational purposes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it. The query, it's this one that I already pasted. I'm just going to repaste it just to be clear. So the expectation is that I am going to get all of these data right here the top best 10 results that I get, and so on, right? So a Sky Dental, or a dentist in New York, or best dentist near me, New York City Dental, and etc. So this part is what I expect to retrieve. Now, did it actually work? So the query succeeded, and these are the results that I'm expecting. Dentist in New York, best dentists in New York, this, whatever. So it worked. And now that we know it works, we can then go into n8n and use it. How are we going to do that? We are just going to go right here. I am going to tell you that now it's much easier than you expect, because n8n made it very nice for us and built a node that we can access. And what do we want to do? The scraper that we are talking, they're called actors. And what we want to do is not only run it, but we also want actually to get a dataset, right? That's why we are going to press run an actor and get the dataset. Here, you are going to have your credentials connected. How are you going to do that? You are going to call this, I don't know, Joe test. And we are going to go into the API keys. And where do we find them? We find them right here inside the settings and API and integrations. And we are going to press the create new token, Joe test scrape. Create. I am going to then have it right here. I'm just going to press this little button right here and then connect it, and boom. And this is how you connect your credentials. Very straightforward, nothing crazy. By the way, you might have to put like few dollars, they will last you forever, like 5 or something. Now we want to have an actor, we want to run it and get the data set, and we want to get it from a list. We know that our actor, just to be clear, it's called Google Search Result Scraper. So what I can do is I can just go here and press it, paste it, and I get my actor. And then it requires an input, and in JSON. And why? Because now we are connecting the scraper, but JSON is the envelope that contains all of these information, and where we tell the scraper, okay, get me the 10 results inside the query of dentists in New York. We don't have to write anything because it's, again, very straightforward. We go back to our runs. We press the latest run that we did. Here in input, we're going to press copy. And this is exactly the code that's required. And if you see, now I will execute. And while it executes, I'll show you. We have dentists in New York right here. And we also have the same limit that we put. Just to be clear, all of this, which is null and etc., and all of this can all be eliminated because they don't help us one bit. What matters is that you get the right queries and parameters that you use in your search. However, you can just paste it and it will work. If everything goes right now, we get let me show you in tabular form because it's just easier for you to see that we got the right stuff. But there you go. We have a lot of stuff like dentist in New York, Manhattan, best dentist, dentist New York City near me. And if you notice, that's exactly what we're funding right here, right? So bam, best New York City near me and etc. Great. Now we have everything that we want. And why do we need this? And how do we remember what is the difference between Firecrawl and Apify? Let's go back to the restaurant example. We said that initially HTTP, it's simple text, right? Actually, let me go full screen. It's simple text, meaning that we will have a menu and we just read it. Then we mentioned, hey, but we don't only have simple text, but we sometimes can enter the restaurant, the waitress comes and then writes the menu for us. And this is what we call with Firecrawl, like scraping dynamic website, because we said that not always we have the information there. And now we did one more step, which is bypassing protection, which basically means that the waitress or the waiter did not only give us the menu, but he or she also invited us to the kitchen, so that now we can see the behind the scene and we can get access to whatever we want, right? With that said, you have all of the tools now in order to be able to scrape website and in order to understand what you need to use and when. And just to make a quick recap, HTTP are great for static files and you must ideally use it because it allows you to do it for free. Then, if you are scraping simple dynamic sites, Firecrawl is a go-to thing. I generally go there in case the HTTP doesn't work as a first resource. And only if I'm scraping, let's call them fancy websites, so Google searches, LinkedIn, Instagram, or anything like YouTube and so on, then I can access third-party services, which is the Apify, let's call it, ecosystem. With that being said, you are now able to scrape any website that comes your way, and you're also able to understand why sometimes you need to use one technique versus another one, and why you get an empty array sometimes. If you want to use this template and see what I hard-coded and play around with it, you can find it in the first link down below. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.